Hello and welcome to this Rivemont MicroCap Strategy monthly update for March 2022. My name is Matthew Martin and I'm a portfolio manager at Rivemont. Before we start, I must mention that this presentation is for informational purposes only. This is not investment advice or recommendations. If I talk about some companies today, Rivemont may hold positions in those companies and may trade on them at any time without prior notice. With that out of the way, let's look at a snapshot of the Rivemont MicroCap Fund at March 31st, 2022. The fund had 14 million in assets under management, which is similar to last month. In terms of returns, the fund generated a positive return of 4% for the month, and I'm very happy to say that we're starting possibly a new uptrend after a tough start to the year. When we look at the benchmark, it was fairly similar with 4% return also for the month. And finally, in terms of concentration in the top 5 holdings, we're at 38%, which is fairly consistent from month to month. Now let's explain the returns a little bit more. First of all, we saw a rebound in the overall market during the month of March. If we look at large caps in the US, for example, the S&P 500 was up close to 4%. In Canada, the TSX Composite was also up close to 4%. So we saw a good rebound across the board, across many asset classes. And fortunately, the Rivemont MicroCap Fund also rebounded, so it's great to see that there's some renewed interest in the Canadian microcap space. And then the second thing is that our recent purchases are bearing fruit. In the last monthly update, I was saying that the market was very attractive right now, the valuations were very low, and that it was a good time to deploy capital in the Canadian microcap market. And that's exactly what we did through the Rivemont MicroCap Fund. We had some cash available to reinvest, and we added to some of our positions in which we have a high conviction, and we felt they were trading too cheaply. So we ended up buying at the very lowest point on some of our holdings, and one of them, for example, is up 25% since then in the last few weeks only. So those purchases are really helping the returns right now. Now a little bit about the outlook. I can say that April started on a positive note so far. The uptrend we've seen in the last few weeks of March continued in April, so we're pleased to see that. Even though we saw a bit of volatility in the large cap space fairly recently, the fund is holding up pretty well so far. So that's great news for the Rivemont MicroCap Fund. And then one thing that's interesting to note is that the market remains quite challenging for companies that are not profitable. In the last few years, it was fairly easy to raise meaningful amounts of capital for companies that were burning money to grow very quickly. But now we see these companies are starting to struggle a little bit more because they need to raise more capital, but the market is more cautious right now. So we see these companies continuing to go down, while the market is way more favorable to companies that are profitable, that have a healthy balance sheet, and that don't need to raise money. So it's obviously good for the microcap strategy, because most of the stocks we own are in the second category. Okay, now a few other highlights. First of all, I mentioned in the last monthly update that the Rivemont team was going to participate in the Alpha Nord conference, and we did at the end of March. It was a very interesting event. It's actually a bit of like a speed dating session. We meet 18 different companies throughout the day at 20 minutes each, and we hear the pitch from the executive team of each company. To us, it's a great way to get exposure to a lot of new ideas, some were more interesting than others, obviously. Now, did we find a company that might be included in the portfolio eventually? We're not sure yet. There were a few earlier stage opportunities. Some of them we will do more research and we will start to follow them a little bit more actively. We also met a private company, and this one was very interesting. They are currently raising money privately with the goal of going public later this year. And since the Rivemont MicroCap Fund can invest in pre-IPO opportunities, that's definitely an opportunity we will consider seriously. Also, when we go to these conferences, the interesting aspect is that we can meet other investors or other industry participants. And especially this one, since it was the first time we went to that event, there were a lot of new faces, we met a lot of new people, and hopefully down the road maybe these people will provide some good insights and opportunities for the microcap fund as well. Going to conferences is not the only way for us to get exposure to new ideas or do research on companies. We can also just travel to a city and meet companies directly at their office or manufacturing facility, and that's exactly what we plan to do at the end of April. We'll go to the Toronto area and also Mississauga and Hamilton, and we'll visit a few companies over the course of 2 days. So for us that's really helpful, especially when we meet portfolio companies, because we can meet not only the management team, but we can also meet other employees. We can try out the product or services. We can see what the culture looks like, and that's a very good way for us to build our conviction in some of our best ideas. And we can also visit new companies as well and see if it's something that we'd like to invest in. So we're very excited to go to Toronto at the end of the month. We'll meet 5 of our top 10 positions in the Rivemont MicroCap Fund, and I'll report on that in the next monthly update for sure. So that's it for the update for March 2022. I thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me. You can also visit the website rivemont.ca, where you'll find all the information you need on the microcap strategy and also our other strategies at Rivemont. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to speaking next month.